المحور الأول للمؤتمر بعنوان أفضل التطبيقات العالمية لمنظومة الابتكار برئاسة الأستاذ مؤنس شجاع. تفضل أستاذ مؤنس.
الله يجزي فضلك أخت أمل، شكرا لك وأشكر الدكتورة هنادي مباركي على المؤتمر واستضافتي. We can start now the first session for the day. Best practices of innovation ecosystem. والدكتورة فاتن الجبشeh, former managing director Kuwait Institute of Scientific and Research. دكتورة فاتن.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you please upload my presentation or give me the host so I can share?
Technical support to be.
The host is with me. Okay, share screen. What do I share? Can they upload my presentation? I'm having trouble.
Give me a minute, please. I will upload it and present it for you. 1 minute.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Assalamu alaikum jami'an. In the meantime, marhaba دكتورة هنادي. Can you hear me well?
اهلا وسهلا دكتورة فاتن، شرفتينا. الحين يرفعون البرزنتيشن مالتك التقني.
مشكورين على وجودنا معاكم بهالمؤتمر الجميل وعلى عدة سنوات. وطبعا يعني اللي تقدمه دكتورة هنادي شيء رائع صراحة، ومجموعة الزملاء اللي معانا كلهم يثرون النقاش والموضوع. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام للجميع، جميع الزملاء من كل مكان وكل أرجاء العالم. Can I speak in English? My presentation is in English. Is that okay?
Yes, the language of the conference is English. Go ahead and everything in English. But we cannot stop the VIP and told him speak English.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to talk a bit about the economic impact of science, technology, innovation policy and the ecosystem in general, and then I'll focus on Kuwait. I think I've overdone the slides, so I'm going to have to condense them a bit as I talk. Can you move to the next slide, please? I'm the current manager of science and technology at KISR, at the Kuwait Institute for Scientific Research, and not the former yet. And we'll be looking at economic diversification as a function of innovation, what innovation is, the role of innovation, the national system of innovation, sustainable development goals as far as they relate to innovation, the GGI, and education, human capital, in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, the gaps and challenges and the future potential opportunities. Please move the slide. Innovation is a broad concept as distinct from invention and research. The OECD defines it as the implementation of a new or a significantly improved product, a good or a service or a process, a new marketing methodology or a new organizational method, or a business practice, the process of translating an idea into an invention or into a good or a service that creates value, is a value added. It's something new, it's a new application, a new device, or even a new use. It's for better solutions, it's for more effective products, processes, technologies, business models, to create or to evolve markets, governments, and society. And it's not the same as invention, of course. Can you move to the next slide, please? This is how it goes: insight, idea, design, build, test, market, and sell. Next slide, please. This is the process of innovation that I'm sure we're all familiar with, which is the ideation, assessment, evaluation, validation, and then finally commercialization, which is a whole different ballgame in itself. To the next slide, please. So what's the role of innovation, or specifically technology innovation? And AI, of course, is at the paramount of this. It's one of the key drivers for economic growth and one of the critical keys to solve many global challenges. I'm an economist personally, so I focus on the economic dimension of innovation. So it's an essential driver of economic growth, as always have been. and it contributes to economic growth immensely, one of the prime factors actually, and it's the development of ideas and technologies that makes quantum leaps in via the production of processes and goods. Next slide, please. For example, the steam engine in the 18th century enabled mass production, revolutionized railway transportation. Innovation can lead to higher productivity, more efficient and effective efficacy, and it's a smart economic diversification venue for us in the GCC and in Kuwait. It raises the total factor of productivity, and which is currently a negative productivity factor. It raises GDP via job creation, and for the private sector, it's a very critical mover. The GCC have productivity challenges. Innovation shifts resources to more productive activities and venues. One key objective in this regard is to create a conducive environment and an ecosystem that promotes creativity and innovation. Innovation as a standalone bears little economic significance. However, its widespread adoption opens up productive gains and growths, and the diffusion of innovation technologies. That's where the economic impact happens. Next slide, please. How do we apply knowledge? To be impactful, you need to have a variety of tools, an incentive system, a financial system, or a regulatory system, and industrial capabilities. Most of all, we need an educational system. For example, the inspiring role of China and, say, Korea. They invested heavily in education. In 1985, they initiated reform programs. They reformed their education system. And as you know, education is basically the seed of innovation, especially with regard to STEM. Even the arts, the sciences, and science and technology, they all bud from these root sciences. They sent over 50,000 PhD graduates, industry focused, and by 2000, all the heads of their institutions cannot have any linkages to the party, so they separated political affiliation from innovation, from education. And then they went to selecting niches. They targeted and focused on the lion's select factors. China operates over 1,200 innovation incentives. Next slide, please. For economic diversification, we need more capabilities, which means more products, higher product complexity for a complex economy, which is more highly diversified, which we are not. Product complexity is a tool to study potential for economic diversification. For example, if you can build an iPhone, if you can create an iPhone, there are so many sub-sectors and sub-products within the iPhone that would have enabled you to create the iPhone to begin with, or the smartphone. Countries may diversify, not toward producing more complex products, hence not advancing themselves. Countries that can produce, for example, a smartphone or airplane have diversified way down the road, where they have produced many other things that became before that. Next slide, please. The national system of innovation is built on the following: firm-centric or linkages, so it interacts with socioeconomic environment, institutions, government, social interests, civil society, consumers. Consumers have a major role to play because it's with consumer feedback where you raise the productivity, the competitiveness of your product or service. Academia and education, science, technology, innovation policy. For example, Morocco, Jordan, UAE, Lebanon, Oman, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and Qatar are in great progress. We have examples where in the United States they have the trilogy, or the military-industrial complex, where the military is connected with industry, is connected with academia and research. That's where a lot of the major innovations, including the internet, over which we are on right now, has come forth. It basically spilled over or trickled down from the military-industrial complex. Next slide, please. We look very quickly at the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, as set out by the UNDP. So it focuses on 17 different areas. Each area is different according to which country that you're in and which area that you're in. But we focus more on between 3 and 17. Next slide, please. Kuwait's 2035 vision aims to transform Kuwait into a financial trade hub regionally and internationally. for more interesting and more attractive investment opportunities. The private sector plays a leading role in that. The vision for the Highness of Emir of Kuwait is to also change that and move in that direction. And Kuwait enjoys a strategic geographical location, and it uses a lot of global indicators to measure and benchmark. Next slide, please. So the pillars of 2035 is based on innovation, effective civil services, sustainable diversity in the economy, sustainable environments, developed infrastructure, high-quality healthcare, creative human capital, global positioning. Next slide, please. And the innovation landscape for inclusive, sustainable development includes basically 3 basic models, and we're adding more and more: the UNCTAD model, the OECD model, and the ESQA model. Next slide, please. If we look at the Global Innovation Index very quickly, we'll see that we still lag in many areas, but we're improving. And we look at scores and ranks with regard to the sub-indices of input and output across the region. Next slide, please. All the products produced are the periphery for the GCC and for Kuwait. The exchange rates are overvalued. And I'll give you a brief outlook at the Hausman Atlas, which shows you a geographic sporadity of where products are produced. It provides a list of potential products that a country can emulate based on its policy direction. Next slide, please. We look at Kuwait, for example, in terms of Global Competitiveness Index. We look at all these indices which show that we are ranked mediocrely. We look at capacity for innovation, quality of scientific research institutions, company spending on R&D, and all of these indicators where it's obvious that there's a team problem where things aren't coerced, concerted together, and there's an initiative problem also. Next slide, please. This is the product space mapping or the Hausman and Klinner strategy of looking at how products are diversified, where you have a close-knit, as in the center is where you have great efficiency and effectiveness, and the more sporadic and outspread that you are, where you lose less connections. Other countries that have very highly developed systems would have a more dense network. Next slide, please. The product space mapping is highly heterogeneous. There's peripheral products that only weakly connect to each other, as I mentioned, and there's groupings among these products, such as petroleum products, where the large red nodes are. Seafood products, garments, a very dense cluster at the bottom of the network, and there's a core of closely connected products at the center of the network, mainly for machinery and other capital-intensive goods. Next slide, please. As such. Next slide, please. These figures show how Kuwait is limited to upper and lower right shares, where raw materials, basically basic commodities, typical of oil-based economies or oil surplus economies, where diversification is still lagging. But beyond this stagnation, there's little change in Kuwait's orientation in the product space. So the GCC in general, but Kuwait specifically, which is what I focused on, has a problem with diversifying, has not overcome that challenge at all. To a large degree, it still persists. Next slide, please. This is the innovation ecosystem that I alluded to earlier, where we're talking about university, risk capital or angel investors, government, the corporate sector or the private sector. Next slide, please. And here again is the innovation ecosystem spread out horizontally, where you look at venture capitalists, private equity, development agencies, professional startups, market facilitators, private companies, and so forth. This network or this ecosystem, this algorithm is lacking in the GCC still, and basically in the Arab world in total. To a large extent, it's lacking. Next slide, please. So Kuwait's ranked 100 out of 121 countries on the quality of its innovation linkages, as per the GEI of 2018. Identified the main gaps are the strong disincentives for nationals to seek work in the private sector, mostly are engaged in the public sector. The lack of effective innovation policy development and coordination across government prevents progress on innovation and diversification targets. The country's ability to attract high-quality foreign talent to support its innovation challenge, and the Kuwaitization of a lot of policies that hinder innovation firms, meaning that where it's pertinent that a private sector organization employs a certain ceiling of nationals by law. This is called Kuwaitization. An integrated innovation system or strategy is lacking, and there's a need for an innovation strategy or body in Kuwait. We're the only research institute in Kuwait, KISR. And the dominance of the Kuwait economy does not strongly pull innovation. So there are very, very few spin-offs within the current framework. Next slide, please. There's a lack of enough and effective incubators, accelerators, and mentorship in that area. We don't excel in that area right now. Much is needed in terms of exposure to international best practices and technology, and to internalize them, not to just transfer it, but to also internalize it. There's a generous scholarship program sending researchers and students from the university and from KISR to study abroad and come back with PhDs and master's degrees in very wanted fields. It's a very studied program, but then we lack the ecosystem that basically absorbs all of those capabilities that come back and connects them into a very, very high level of productivity. According to the World Economic Forum, Global Innovation Competitive Index for Kuwait was ranked at 80th a few years ago out of 137. Kuwait is a net importer, as much of the rest of the GCC, and the only program aimed at supporting intellectual property creation and monetization is the SAC initiative, which is the Sabah Al-Ahmed Center for Giftedness and Creativity. And it provides monetary and non-monetary support for patenting and commercialization. Next slide, please. So in spite of spending a lot on education and performance in the Kuwaiti educational system remains modest, the STEM still lags. According to the TIMSSS international measurement, results on math are low, and so are the other STEMs. And as with the rest of the entire region, and more specifically of the GCC, and more specifically of Kuwait, that I can talk about is we rank in the bottom 50% in terms of education. So education needs to be reformed to be aligned with our innovation aspirations and our growth and economic diversification aspirations. For example, in India, education targeted push by the government. In Korea, they started to diversify in 1953. 40 years later, the economy was fully diversified. So this is a very long-term plan, a very long-term strategy, and it's evidenced now by their productivity, of course. Next slide, please. The entrepreneurial ecosystem, of course, is the other end of innovation, because that's where you talk about commercialization. And entrepreneurially, Kuwaitis don't view the private sector as an attractive option for work, and they prefer the public sector. It's safer. And the income can be comparable, actually, in many cases. There's a low level of startup activity. And in those technology-focused areas. So you'll find a lot of startup activity, for example, in the food area or the cafes, or a lot of leisurely activities, but not in where innovation, which is still innovation, but not in areas where there's technology innovation. Sources of funding, SMEs, there's a generous SME fund that's over 7 billion KDs. and it's still not attracting innovation. They're mostly in terms of soft consumerism, as you can see. Next slide, please. The gaps and challenges. So there's strong disincentives to seek work in the private sector. There's lack of effective innovation policy development and coordination across the sectors of government, academia, research, and the private sector. Attracting high-level foreign talent is still a challenge. Kuwaitization is a challenge that hinders innovation, especially in those sectors where innovation and technology is required. There's a lack of integrated innovation strategy, and large state firms dominate the Kuwaiti economy, so there's a strong pull, not a strong pull in innovation. There's a lot of oligopolies. There are weak links between research system and firms and industry to take in ideas and adopt innovation, particularly in the knowledge-intensive areas, which is where the technology and the innovation in terms of technology and the higher value-added goods is present. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. The potential future opportunities, and there's exciting advances in these areas. So on the uptone, we have cooperation amongst GCC countries in numerous joint research and development projects and collaborations under the umbrella of the General Secretariat, which I'm personally involved in and very proud to be part of. It's moving along very nicely. The establishment of a GCC research center with a focus now to begin with on environment and pollution and green technologies. There's a focus on training and know-how from best practices, a focus on, as I mentioned, emissions, energy, environmental studies, and on sharing resources and aligning activities regionally. Next slide, please. The recommendations for focal solution areas are to revamp the educational system, which is the foundation of knowledge and intensive innovation, to set innovation policy and custodianship for that, the private sector collaboration to bridge the GCC, idea invention development, resource efficiency, talent programs, innovation championships, top of the field, state-of-the-art select fields, niching, bridging science to market, doing feasibility studies as part of pre-commercialization, and focusing on emerging technologies, AI, machine learning as platforms across different fields. Next slide, please. And to promote creativity and innovation culture, to spread the culture of creativity, to partner with institutions specialized in building innovation, to highlight success stories and to facilitate the involvement of community. And the solution is in strategic planning and mapping. Research and development is only part of innovation, and to select the most promising focal areas, not to spread ourselves everywhere. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. And remember that science of today is the technology of tomorrow, as Edward Teller said. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Doctora. Thank you so much. Our next speaker, Mr. Nakia George. Go ahead, please. You can start now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time for being able to be here today. So my name is Nakia Malicio. I'm a senior research faculty at Georgia Institute of Technology in the United States of America. And today I want to talk a little bit about how I work and operate inside innovation ecosystems. And I want to talk about it from the perspective of commercialization, launching new ventures in academia. I'm very, very excited about listening to the last talk, because I think it's absolutely critical to really think about how our ecosystems are interconnected, not just locally, but globally. And when we think about innovations in our institutions, our academic institutions, they are literally the ones that are creating the cutting edge technology and science that helps to promote new innovations across the globe. As we saw during COVID really exposed how interconnected we are and how it's important to find ways that we figure out how to work together. But what are some of the critical challenges when we think about in terms of technologies and innovations? It's very easy in some parts of the world and regions of the world. We have an abundance of access and resource to help our faculty members and students in innovation launch technologies from universities to commercial markets. But it's important that we also share our best practices, not just with our local ecosystems, but globally. It's important that we make sure that we help our counterparts across the global academic community to ensure the best and the brightest of our faculty can not only innovate and do research at their universities, but to have their research have impact at their local institutions and their local ecosystems and their local places of country. When we think about launching technology from lab to market or technology entrepreneurship, again, it's an extremely arduous task, but it is something worth one diving into and investing in. I truly believe that the future is now. And the future not only is now, but it's investing in our students and our faculty and our entrepreneurship. When we talk about fundamentally shifting the global landscape, there's two fundamental questions that we have to ask ourselves. What are the challenges? And then where are the opportunities? We're no shortage of opinions in terms of what we should do, but we're shortage in terms of strategy and actually how to go about doing it and deploying it. As I come to you from the United States and talk about what we do here at our university, I extend not only my appreciation, but my offer to say I am connected to the global academic community and not just at our institution. While I have the privilege of working with some of the world's best and greatest scientists at our university, we also have the opportunity and a desire to make sure that we connect with the global community to ensure that we're providing entrepreneurship, education, resources, and support for the local entrepreneurship academic institutions across the world. I firmly believe we're at the intersection of what we like to call entrepreneurship and research. These two things are colliding like more than ever before. And what we realize when we talk about creating new economies or creating new ecosystems, it starts out with research and entrepreneurship. And as these two things collide together, it gives opportunities for those that are working in institutions and those that are not working in institutions to come up with new novel ways to create new funding opportunities, new grant opportunities, and new innovation opportunities that transform regions and transform the globe. Think about that for a moment. We took a look at how COVID basically really had a big impact on our ecosystem globally, and how it literally almost shut the world down. We weren't sure how we were going to restart our economies across the globe. But when we look at the innovation, the ingenuity of researchers and entrepreneurships, and how these two things collided together to show this is how we can innovate and create and make things better and much faster as we kind of push forward into creating a new world for ourselves. When we think about the term research to market, that means many different things in our ecosystem. It means many different things across the globe. What I'm talking about is taking novel ideas, hard work from scientists and engineers and researchers and faculty to translate those ideas into new industries, new economies, new opportunities. And the jobs that they create are not just for scientific individuals. They're jobs that they create across the whole spectrum of innovation. So it becomes important to make sure that we're investing our time and investing our resources in the next generation of innovation. So my question to faculty or to all of you in the room, or my question to not only just the faculty and the students, but just anyone in this ecosystem, is the fundamental question is why researchers should have an entrepreneurial mindset to improve innovation and commercialization, and why should researchers use a human-centered design? When you think about the aspect of how our innovations touch the human aspect, the end user, us, the people who take privilege in using the technologies that are created at our institutions. One thing that we do see more than ever before, oftentimes around policy and innovation, we leave out that human element. We leave out that human element in terms of developing innovation, and it's important that we find ways to make sure that we always connect the dots and improve the human condition by innovating and pushing our researchers to think about research from a human-centered design perspective. When you think about the impact of technologies, and if you don't consider the impact, it's hard to really see how our research or innovation or projects actually touch humankind. When we start to think about adapting medical grade technology for consumers, it becomes more important to begin to think about the process of what it looks like to consider the human aspect inside our design, our innovation. It's very easy to hide behind our academic walls and to stand in our laboratories, but never truly think about the impact of the innovation that we're creating. While AI and machine learning and generative AI are impacting the world, we can't be so far removed from the human element of how we are impacting the people we're creating these innovations for. So I would like to encourage that we have a convergence of AI and machine learning and how it interacts and how it engages with the human to ensure that we're building something that's sustainable. And not just how we impact our human aspect, but how does technology and AI and innovation impact the deeper sciences across the nation, across the globe, from space infrastructure to repulsive and responsive launch systems to propulsion systems, all these things, new innovation, new markets like the space economy. And how do we intertwine each other to connect the dots to make sure that our universities are working together? As AI continues to impact our nation from space to human systems to energy to cyber to autonomy, it's important again to think about what does that look like. But I want to encourage you again to think about these elements from a human-centered design perspective. Now, why would I be talking about human-centered design or design thinking in the research aspect? Because when you think about human-centered design or design thinking, the first step is empathy, understanding what you're building and who you're building it for and who it impacts. We can't be so far removed from the science aspect or so far removed to the point we don't consider the human element or the human impact of our innovation. While we're creating new economies, we're displacing others. While we're displacing others, we need to reskill those that we're displacing to ensure that they have a successful, bright future as well. Because I will assure you this, they don't need a PhD to engage in the future. They don't need a PhD to engage in the next generation of technology. What they need is innovation and scientists and engineers for us to think from the perspective of how do we incorporate them in our innovations as we move forward to ensure that we're building something successful. So to give you a bit of optics in terms of how human-centered design collides, when you think about the advancement of science and engineering and design, they all collide together. When you think about the simplistic nature of someone who's majoring in art, how can someone who's majoring in art and the humanities impact scientific growth or the development of AI? When you think about the compassionate, creative nature of those who may be majoring in non-STEM degrees and how they can be so helpful and impactful to those who are majoring in STEM degrees. So again, I'm talking about a collide and a conversion of how these two work together and use human-centered design to create new novel tools, technologies, and innovation to ensure we're building a future that is bright for all of us. So in essence, we need to push science boundaries. And in pushing science boundaries, that means we have to think about it from a different perspective. We're all globally connected, whether you believe it or not. What happens in Kuwait impacts what happens here in the US. What happens in the US impacts what happens in Kuwait. So it is my passionate desire and my will to make sure that we work together and find novel ways to tackle some of our toughest challenges so that we can get to a place for the need for reimagination of how we design and create our new future. When you think about all the top sectors that are being impacted by the new global economy, healthcare, energy, advanced computing, food, industry, biotech, industry 4.0 and manufacturing, and aerospace, all these industries require us to figure out how do we work together. Because there's some real hard global demands, some real hardcore numbers. When you think of food shortages and scarcity, when you think of the next generation of the next virus or the next COVID or the next strand, it's important that we work together to figure out how do we understand what is the next generation of innovation of technology to help us to create a sustainable planet for all of us to live on, considering the sustainable goals. We cannot operate in silos. We have to function and operate together if we're going to build the future that we want. I am a firm believer that the world needs scientists more than ever before. But one of the things that we must do is create an environment for scientists to thrive. Not only for them to thrive, but to create sustainable economies and ecosystems that are resilient, that can weather forest fires or that can weather COVID or storms or food scarcity, that we can create an interconnected global supply chain of not just food and resources, but sharing of ideas and scientific ideas, that we create a global community that makes it better for everyone. Now, I'm not remiss the fact that there are geopolitical challenges, or there's policy that has to go in place to support some of these things that I'm saying. But if the willingness is there to support the scientists and the innovation, we will get to a place to help us to navigate through a path of commercialization. When we think about what commercialization is in its simplistic nature, it's about research. Then we get to a place of developing the thing, demonstrating that it works, and then ultimately getting to a place of deploying this. We have to figure out ways to normalize or create a common commercialization language across the global community, because it means very different things in multiple ecosystems. So it's important to go about doing that. So how do we reimagine commercialization? Well, first, you have to visualize the systems as they currently are. Again, ecosystems mean very different things. Once we visualize the systems as they are, then we have the unique opportunity to reimagine what that system looks like. Then after we reimagine what it looks like, then we have to humanize the system. How does it impact our individual ecosystems and cultures? But how do we begin to rewrite new narratives and new languages to make sure that as we visualize these new systems, everyone can be able to engage as we humanize the systems so that everyone can benefit from them? And then and only then we can have the opportunity to rebuild, redesign, to create new things and new technologies that serves the greater good and the greater purpose. When we think about how user-inspired research happens from it getting out of our labs into our commercial markets, there's this place called the Valley of Death. I think the Valley of Death happens when we don't find ways to be interconnected, to work with each other, to find ways to be connective. It's great to have the great idea, moving it to a place of proof of concept, but sometimes it requires that interconnectivity, those relationships, as we begin to bridge the gap. As I come to my final slide here, it becomes important to think about how public and private institutions are working together to bridge that valley of death. And I would go as far as to say, not just our local public and private, but our global public and private funds working together to support and to solve some of our toughest challenges. I will say again, the world needs scientists more than ever before. When we think about our entrepreneurship ecosystems, it becomes more important to figure out how do we collaborate with each other, reduce silos to ensure that we have a planet that we're all proud to call home. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nick. Our next speaker, Mr. Sayyid Ismaeel Alqurashi, advisor to Patient Office Director General Secretariat General of the Corporation Council, GCC. Mr. Sayyid Ismaeel. تمام with you now. You can speak.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الصوت واضح؟
إيه نعم واضح. تفضل.
I'm sharing the screen. I will share my screen. 1 second. Okay. There we go. Can you see my slide? Let me start it.
Yes, okay.
Okay, I've just started it now. I can't see the Zoom, but I can see my slide. Okay. So, good afternoon, dear participants. Thank you, Dr. Hanadi Al-Mubaraki, for inviting me to participate in this important annual event. In this presentation, I would like to highlight some recent activities that reflect the role of supporting innovation as well as artificial intelligence, which is played by the Secretariat General of the Cooperation Council for the Arab States of the Gulf, or the Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC, if you would like to call it, at the national and global levels. I would also like to highlight the current status of GCC member states with respect to the Global Innovation Index, GII, of this year, 2023. Excuse me, just to skip these unnecessary slides. Okay, I'll stop here. The interest of the GCC Secretariat General in the innovation, technology, artificial intelligence, and entrepreneurship ecosystem comes based on Article 20 of the Economic Agreement between the GCC states, adopted by the GCC Supreme Council on the 31st of December 2001. The following slides highlight a number of recent events showing some efforts applied by the GCC Secretariat General to support innovation or artificial intelligence. The Secretary General of GCC, Mr. Jassim El-Bdawi, participated in the honoring ceremony of distinguished youth and personalities held in Muscat on Thursday, 4th of May 2023, on the sidelines of the 36th meeting of the Ministers of Youth and Sports in GCC states. He mentioned that honoring of a number of creative and distinguished personalities who have made notable contributions to the youth field comes to reflect the keenness of the leaders of GCC states to nurture the human element and human competencies. The Human and Environment Affairs Sector, Department of Labor and Social Affairs of the GCC Secretariat General, participated in a workshop titled Artificial Intelligence in the Government Sector, Opportunities and Challenges in Doha during the period from 23 to 25 July 2023. This workshop came within the implementation of joint executive programs between the GCC states. The program aims to introduce participants to artificial intelligence and its role in raising the efficiency of the government apparatus and improving the services provided by identifying available opportunities and challenges faced by decision makers and identifying ethical considerations associated with the use of these technologies and how they relate to cybersecurity. The Human and Environment Affairs Sector, Department of Education of the GCC Secretariat General, in cooperation with the Ministry of Higher Education, Scientific Research and Innovation in the Sultanate of Oman, organized a forum titled Reality and Future of Scientific Research and Innovation in GCC member states in Salalah during the period from 25 to 26th of July 2023. During the forum, the most prominent research and innovation achievements at the regional and global levels of the GCC states were discussed. The participants reviewed international performance measurement indicators in scientific research and innovation, including the global innovation and competitiveness indicators. This slide and the following two ones show a side of innovation-related activities executed by the Patent Office at the GCC Secretariat General. The GCC Patent Office is dedicated to continuous participation in regional and international annual exhibitions of inventions. Sorry. I'll just skip to the next slide. The Patent Office at the GCC Secretariat General participated in the Seoul International Invention Fair, SIIF 2023, in South Korea during the period from 1 to 4 November 2023. It hosted inventors from citizens of GCC states with the aim of supporting, encouraging them, and contributing to the marketing of their inventions and highlighting the efforts of GCC member states in this regard. The GCC inventors were selected to participate in this international exhibition by a specialized panel of judges at the GCC Patent Office to select the best from the inventions submitted. It is worth mentioning that those inventors achieved a collection of gold, silver, and bronze medals in addition to special prizes. This slide and the following four ones show data of innovation or artificial intelligence related activities and training programs in which the GCC Patent Office participated. The information exchange on AI innovations training program was held during the period from 21 to 22 September 2022 for the benefit of specialists from GCC member states. It aimed to enhancing awareness of innovation in the field of artificial intelligence. The lessons learned and best practices, the lessons learned and best practices related to intellectual property in the Arab region workshop was held during the period from 5 to 6 December 2022 for the benefit of specialists from GCC member states. It aimed to provide an opportunity for representatives of the intellectual property offices to enhance their capacity in IP ecosystem. My comment was related to this slide. I'm sorry for skipping the previous one. Yes, I just come back to this slide. Bank Al Jazeera Innovation Support Program Creators Workshop was held on 10th of October 2022 for the benefit of a group of school students. It aimed to highlight the importance of IP and encouraging the students to invent and innovate and protect their rights.
Excuse me.
Please, go ahead.
Yes, would you mind to share the slide? Now it's only fixed in first slide.
Oh, okay.
Yes, would you mind to running your slide? Yes, now okay.
But I have to start presentation. Okay, so let's see if it will still stay. Okay, can you see slide number 14 now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, let me just get back. Now, can you see slide number 13, right? Dr. Hanadi?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so it's okay. Now, slide number 14. The Search Matters 2023 conference was held during the period from 23 to 25 May 2023 for the benefit of specialists from GCC member states. Its aim is fostering innovation by sharing patent knowledge and supporting innovators to finding technologies that contribute to a smarter, safer, and more sustainable world. Its target is finding out the best search strategies for more sustainable world. Next slide. This is number 15, okay? Please correct me if I'm wrong. The GCC version of our running international...
No, it's not running. Just press.
I don't know what to do, but I will shift F5. Can you see it now?
No, now still only 14.
Okay, I escaped. Okay, 1 second. I have restarted the slideshow. It is now showing slide number 14. Now slide number 15. Is it okay with you?
No, still 14, but no problem. You can continue.
I'll try. Okay. Now, can you see the slide now?
Now is it? Yes, yes.
Okay. Though it is not full screen. Okay. Excuse me for that.
No problem at all.
Thank you. The GCC version of our running international virtual conference, namely the fourth GCC virtual conference, to support ecosystem innovation, artificial intelligence, technology, and entrepreneurship, was held during the period from 20 to 22 June 2023 for the benefit of specialists from GCC member states. It aims to bring leading practitioners, academic scientists, and researchers together. Its target is exchanging and sharing experiences, ideas about innovation and artificial intelligence entrepreneurship ecosystem in the GCC region. Now let us talk a bit about the Global Innovation Index. I excerpted this paragraph from the preface section of the Global Innovation Index 2023 report, which was written by the co-editors Soumitra Dutta and Bruno Lamvin, because it explains why the GII is so important. The Global Innovation Index GII reveals the most innovations, the most innovative economies in the world, ranking the innovation performance of around 132 economies, while highlighting innovation strengths and weaknesses. The index comprises around 80 indicators. This is the Global Innovation Index 2023 ranking. Don't worry about the tediousness of reading this zoomed out picture, because I am only interested at the moment in the results of the 6 GCC member states. The weekly summary number 250, published on 5th of November 2023 by the Statistical Center for the Cooperation Council for the Arab States of the Gulf, GCC STAT, shows the current status of performance of the GCC member states according to the Global Innovation Index 2023 report. It also shows the global and Arabic ranking of the GCC member states in GII 2023. Except the United Arab Emirates and Kuwait, the GCC member states achieved a better GII ranking in this year compared to the last year. Nevertheless, the 6 GCC member states showed higher values of the innovation index in 2023 compared to 2022, as shown on this slide. The United Arab Emirates and this slide gives in a brief improvements in focusing on GCC member states. So you can read it from the slide. I can just wrap through, go through it quickly. The UAE stabilizes at the 32nd place, close to the top 30. Saudi Arabia 48th and Qatar 50th make it into the top 50. Middle East economies: Bahrain, Oman, in addition to Jordan. The Bahrain 67th, Oman 69th. And Egypt 88th. Also experienced notable improvement in their innovation ranking, with Bahrain and Oman entering the top 70 and Jordan just outside. In sum, these are some 51 systematic and positive innovative rank developments in Middle East. This graph shows innovation input and output performance in 2023, and I'm sorry for that it's not clear. In conclusion, I would conclude that we should, especially in the GCC member states, we have to focus on points of weaknesses in order to improve the overall ranking of innovation in our GII. Thank you very much for your attention.
Great, thanks, Sayyid Ismaeel Alqurashi, for your valuable presentation. You are representing the GCC councils and the achievement of the GCC supporting innovation ecosystem from several years. And if you stop the share.